Hi there, this is Ron Rogers, and this is a story about an Air Force pilot training student who made a split-second decision and then almost realized that he had made the wrong decision and that he was about to die. Now, this happened back at Vance Air Force Base back in 1974. This is a little more recent picture of the Vance Air Force Base. I don't think this sign existed when we were back there. And this is the picture of the two towers, the Vance Air Force Base main control tower and the water tower on base. Now, this happened a long time ago. This is actually a picture of Vance back around probably World War II time when they were training, I believe, B-25 pilots. It has a long history, but no, we're a little more modern. The 71st Flight Training Wing was established there, and we were all students under this. I was a student, and the other gentleman involved in this was also a student pilot. We were both T-38 student pilots. Now, they had a program in the squadron at the time called Dynamic Observer. Basically, what you would do is you'd take a solo student in the T-38, and it'd be any solo student. They were trying to give student pilots more exposure to, flying. So they said, hey, we got an empty back seat. Why waste it? Put another student in the back seat. So we're sending up two students up flying together. They called it the Dynamic Observer Program. We kind of later thought of it more as the Dynamic Stupidity Program. Nothing more dangerous than two solo students going up in a very high performance aircraft, right? Okay, so the deal was there was one of these Dynamic Observer flights, and it didn't matter who the front seat pilot was. It was his solo flight that now became a, dynamic observer, and it didn't matter whether he was a marginal student, a good student, or whatever. It was an empty seat. They plot somebody back in there. Okay, I can see that you may be seeing where this is going. Well, they had been going up, they had done some aerobatics out in the area and stuff like that, and they're coming back and they're doing some traffic patterns. Well, the guy in the back seat is not being enamored by the way the pilot in the front seat is flying. In fact, he doesn't like what he's seeing at all, and it is making him more and more progressively nervous. Now, let's talk about what you do on a flight like this. You go up and you do some aerobatics. That's great. You come back and you're going to do some patterns. Okay, well, touch and go landings. We did touch and go landings in the T-38, very common. You got a lot of patterns in quickly, got a lot of experience, and there was a very set procedure. 1, 2, 3. Throttles, mill or max. Mill was usually good enough. Then you go landing gear lever up when you are definitely airborne. Now that's key there, when you are definitely airborne. And then the next is wing flaps come up. Now there's a little warning here, and it's a very good warning because touch and go landings encompass all aspects of the landing and takeoff procedures in a relatively short time span. Okay, we're talking about a very high-speed aircraft here. Be constantly alert for possible aircraft malfunctions or unsafe operator techniques during these two critical phases of flight. Now, I had one of these. It was my first engine failure. I was doing a solo flight in a T-38, and I was doing a touch and go, and I pushed both throttles up, and I didn't notice that the left engine was still at idle while the right engine came up to mill power. Now, you might be saying, well, didn't you notice on the rudder? And, well, I put in the rudder kind of automatically, but centerline thrust, I mean, you can be in full afterburner on one engine, and it's like a third of a ball displacement. It's not much at all, so it doesn't take much coordination really at all. So the fact that I had one at mill and the other at idle didn't get my attention until I realized that I wasn't accelerating as fast as I was. Okay, not the smartest cross-check here, but I realized I wasn't accelerating as fast as I should. I was near takeoff speed, so I just pushed them both forward into afterburner, and of course, the one lit, the other one lit later, but I basically became airborne. I felt that I didn't have enough runway to left to stop, but okay, I digress on my own little story here. Back to the story at hand. All right, let's look at these touch and go patterns here. Now, okay, the little red thing there. You come on final. Okay, you're at the end of the flight, so it feels kind of light. You're not adding much knots. It's a thousand. It's a 1 knot for 8,000 pounds of fuel, but you're not adding much because you're fairly lightweight. And you fly final at 155, and you touch down. You're supposed to touch down at 130. Remember that speed of 130. And of course, the procedure here is landing gear. You go throttles to mill, very important, throttles to mill. And then, okay, this is critical. And then once you're airborne, landing gear up, and then you get the flaps up. Okay, just to show you how this worked, that little green arrow there, those are the throttles. Those are the things that you push forward to go fast. Go fast, go slow, okay? And the thing in the red, that's the landing gear handle. And that's the thing that you put up once you get airborne. Now, there's another little procedure here called ejection. It's fairly straightforward. This is what the backseater became engaged in. It's hand grip raise, triggers squeeze. Okay, and there were two seats here. Later on, we got a better seat. That's the green one where you could eject at ground level in 50 knots. The one with the red arrow is the seat we had. And you had to have 120 knots for the seat to work. Now, okay, remember when I said remember that 130? Okay, this seat you have to have 120 knots to work. Well, you touch down at 130. Okay, you're at idle power, except for, when the guy ran off the runway in this airplane the one that I lost the canopy in later and they punched out. That's a different story. I digress here again. But anyway, okay, so you're at idle power, you touch down 130. And of course, there's a little deceleration while you're waiting, to say, hey, I did land. Wasn't that a beautiful landing? I could barely feel it. You did a nice landing. So now you're coming in with the power. And of course, you're coming up from idle. You got a deceleration. So you easily can go below 120 knots. And that's the speed for the ejection seat. Well, the guy in the back seat was not liking what he was seeing about this guy at all. And during this time, the guy did an incorrect application of the touch and go procedure. I said it's step 1, power to mill or max. Step 2, gear up when you're possibly airborne. And then step 3 is you get the flaps up. Well, he confused steps 2 and 1. The student in the front seat put the gear up, and then he put the power in. Well, the aircraft started to settle. Okay, well, this guy in the back seat was convinced that he wasn't happy with this guy at all. This just was the frosting on the cake, so he goes, I'm out of here. Now, a lot of pilots don't eject when they should. They try to stay with the aircraft. They try to save it. They go too long, and there's a lot of people who die, a number, because they wait too long to eject. So, at least he didn't hesitate on making the decision. But, okay, he's going up under the seat. Now, there's a certain time compression. Anybody who's had an emergency like that understands this, where time just slows down. So here he is. Here's the sequence. You hand grips raised, triggers squeeze, boom, the canopy comes off, you start up. I mean, you can see here, things happen very quickly, and you have the zero delay lanyard connected. So if you're at low altitude, typically you disconnect it above 10,000 feet, but at your low altitude, it's connected. So once that seat starts to separate, that chute is going to start to open immediately, but you still have to have the 120 knots to get it to work, okay? Well, he's still in the process of where the red arrow is, and he's thinking, I did not necessarily make a good decision here. I forgot to look at my airspeed, was his quote. So he says, I'm going up under this seat, and I don't know if I'm going to make it. In fact, he was pretty convinced that he wasn't going to make it. But fortunately, he did get a chute, and he successfully landed and didn't get injured or anything like that. Well, in this whole process, there are fire trucks out next to the runway, and they see what's going on here. They see the canopy come off, the guy punch out, and he sees this aircraft sliding on its belly off to the side of the runway, and they request clearance to cross the runway to go to the aircraft. Well, there are these mobile controlled units next to all of the runways there to make sure that your gear is down, stuff like that. And there was another guy in the pattern that was having a bit of an issue. He was a solo student, all a marginal student, and he wasn't doing very well. Now you got two guys in this little unit here. You got the controller, who looks towards the landing area, checks the final turn, makes sure the gear down. Then you got the observer. That's the guy who watches the guy at the other end. Well, both of these guys, well, the controller, rightfully so, was looking forward at the landing area. The observer turns around to see kind of what's going on here, because the controller's making comments, oh, look at this guy, you know. So he turns around. So they're both focused the wrong direction, because all of this is happening behind him. And the fire trucks request clearance across the runway. And it's like, well, why do you want clearance across? And then they look around and they see this. They see a guy coming down under a parachute. Well, that's not good. Of course, they hear on the emergency frequency the bailout beacon goes off once the chute opens. So that's kind of an indication that something not good is going on. And of course, everybody up flying hears the bailout beacon and they go, somebody may not be having a good day. All right, so here's the aircraft off the side of the runway in the dirt, gear up. Now, unfortunately, this isn't an actual picture of the airplane. It was the old style A model with the white paint on it, and I saw it up close. If I'd had a camera, you know, we didn't have cell phones back then. We didn't have the internet. You know, this is the olden days. So I didn't get a picture of it. I'd love to get a picture of it, because what happened was the whole side where you see the U.S. Air Force down there just behind the canopy on the inlet there, that was all crinkled. The paint was all crinkled due to the excess heat, because what had happened was, and we had a briefing from the wing commander, because there had been a few issues, and you got the whole wing together, because wing commanders don't like to lose their job over having incidents and stuff like that. And there had been a case where a solo student landed, taxied off the runway, and one of the engines flamed out because it ran out of gas. He was a foreign student trying to communicate that he was getting low on fuel, and there was a little miscommunication, and he was very low on fuel. So there had been a few incidents, and then we had this one. And of course, they debriefed the front pilot on the whole thing, and basically he said that when he felt that he could run faster than the aircraft was sliding, he blew off the canopy. Now, both canopies would have been gone on this. This has both open, but the back seater canopy would have been gone, and the front seater would have been gone because he blew it off. But basically, the student said when he felt that he could run faster than the airplane was sliding, he just jumped over the side. Okay? It was the firemen who came up to the aircraft and took the both throttles out of full afterburner, because the student had decided that this wasn't working. He was sliding on metal, and the coefficient of friction is less on rolling tires than it is on aluminum. But even with the excess thrust of afterburner, it's not enough to overcome that excess coefficient of friction. So he was not going to go anywhere. And of course, I don't know what the coefficient of dirt is, but it was sufficient enough that the airplane wasn't going to get airborne again. That was, even an afterburner. So it was the firemen who came up and pulled both engines out of afterburner and shut the battery switch off, which is the procedure for ground egressing, if I remember it correctly. But anyway, so rather an embarrassing situation there. Well, I talked to the student later, and he was in the snack bar, and needless to say, he was a little upset. He was a smoker, and he's sitting there, and he's holding a cigarette, and he's trying to light it while he's telling me and another guy the story about what happened and about his decision, and he's going up under the seat, and oh my God, did I screw up, sort of thing. So yeah, he was rather taken aback and not too happy about the decision, but it ended up okay. Now you're probably wondering, well, what happened to the guy? Okay, well, this isn't his actual picture. I don't have his actual picture. In fact, I'm not going to give you his name for a very good reason. I don't remember his name. That's a very good reason. And I don't want to disparage anybody, but he actually, I found out, had actually a very good, distinguished career, and he ended up being a very good asset to the Air Force. And of course, there was really no reason to kick him out of the pilot training program. He really didn't do anything wrong. He saw a bad situation, the aircraft sliding off the runway. That could have been very bad if it would have, flipped, anything like that. And that has happened to aircraft where they flip upside down and kill the pilot. So punching out probably was an okay idea, because the guy in the front seat wasn't doing so well. Well, anyway, he he had a successful career. I don't know what happened to the guy in the front seat. Actually, that's kind of an interesting thing. But the dynamic observer program was changed to you flew only with a very good solo student, and unfortunately, I was listed as a very good solo student. So all of my solo flights suddenly went away, and every single one of them, I had a guy riding in the back seat. So, you know, there's nothing more fun than flying the T-38 solo as a student. So I think they eventually did away with the program. Of course, we're talking a long time ago. They could have done away with it, reinstated, done away with it. You know how the Air Force does things. Everybody has to reinvent the wheel. But anyway, that is the story of the student who made a split-second decision and then a split second later thought, I really screwed up. Well, I hope you found it interesting and enjoyable. Thanks for watching.